This week I looked at a game that I really wanted to do for a while, but figured that around Halloween would fit it best. That game, if you can't tell by the title of the video, or the big logo on the screen, is Monster Party. A game that is fairly unknown in the NES library, but seems to be getting a larger cult following as the years go by. It's a very, let's say, strange game. Monster Party features a boy named Mark who is walking home from a baseball game, or practice or something. He seems to star in the sky, but then it turns out to actually be a flying monster named Bert. Of course, Mark isn't even scared, and Bert asks for Mark's assistance in ridding his land of monsters that are apparently more evil than him. He takes Mark's bat as a legit weapon and recruits him. They fuse together somehow, and the game begins. It's a very odd story, which is made even more so bad it's good by the text intro. Then you start level 1, which seems innocent enough, until you see the enemies you fight. A dude in a black suit on fire and shooting swords at you? Legs in the air? What the hell is this? Then you enter a door and have to fight an eggplant belching bubbles? What am I playing? So here's how it works. Mark has to scour each stage, looking for these doorways to enter. Each stage has a number of bosses that need to be defeated. Once you show them all who the hero is, you will acquire a key, which is used to unlock the final door at the end of the stage, which allows you to move on to the next level. There are many doors in each stage, and some of them contain empty rooms. If you can memorize what doors have which, you can make your journey a bit shorter. So let's get this out of the way. I would really love to know how this game passed by the infamously strict Nintendo of America censors. For one, when you start a stage, the screen shows freaking skeletons in a pool of blood. Okay, then you move on to stage 1, and halfway through, this happens. This really colorful start to the game turns into something grotesque, with those weird patches of red blocks turning into grinning faces, the happy blocks turning into skulls with blood oozing out. Oh, and the second level, the sewer, can argue all at once that it's dripping slime, but with that red color, we're gonna go with blood. Sadly, after the first level, the shock level diminishes to nearly nothing, as the remaining stages are the aforementioned sewer, dark cave, a strange Egyptian tomb, a lake, a mansion, a tower, and a sky stage. None of these transform like the first one does, and it's a shame, as the first time you're playing the game, if you didn't know it was going to do that, it's a completely shocking moment. You start off playing as Mark with his bat. You'll immediately notice that the range isn't the greatest, so you'll typically end up staying at the far edge of most enemies' range and just swinging when they get near the end of their set path. However, the advantage of playing as Mark is the fact that you can hit projectiles back to your enemies. This is more useful in boss battles, as many of them are defeated much safer when attacking in this way. If you manage to pick up a pill, you'll turn into Bert for a short time. In addition to being able to shoot a ranged laser, he can also fly, making him perfect for attacking some enemies. The catch to being Bert is that his defense is limited to simply evading enemy attacks, and this isn't always the easiest to do. Sometimes if an enemy shoots something at you, you have no other choice but to get hit. You cannot revert back to Mark voluntarily. Instead, you must wait for that annoying timer to elapse before Mark automatically dissects from Bert. Both characters do feel somewhat stiff in their control. Swinging the bat forces Mark to stand still, and sometimes it's a battle over who can do more damage first. Bert is a bit better, but you have to mash the A button to get him to fly anywhere. Since he doesn't have a normal jump like Mark, you'll be pressing A a lot when playing as Bert. So let's talk about how the boss fights fare. As I said, each stage typically has 3 or so of them, except for the extremely annoying Maze Mansion, which only has 1, but finding it is a whole nother story. The bosses typically come in 2 different flavors: stationary ones that throw projectiles, and ones that run back and forth in the room just attempting to run you over. For the most part, most of the battles are actually easier with Mark, because if he's not batting away bubbles at a plant, he can also deal out multiple hits with a jumping swing. This is because the bat stays extended when in contact with a boss, so if you can time it correctly, such as jumping onion ring boss, you can hit it for a good 5, 6, or 7 hits before hitting the ground. This can put short work to the bosses if you work smartly and quickly. The bosses all have a strange quote before fighting them. I think many of them are supposed to be referencing something, but since I'm not a huge movie buff, I'm probably not going to get most of the jokes. Oh well. By now you may have noticed the massive life meter in the status bar. You only start out with maybe a fifth of this full, but by killing enemies, some of them will drop hearts, which will give you a few units of life. Enemies can be grinded for a short time to keep filling your health, but after about 7 kills, many of them will stop dropping that guaranteed power-up. It is still useful to do that though, as many bosses are endurance battles, where you just want to hit them more times than they can hit you. If you do manage to lose all that life, your game is over. However, there are infinite continues, plus a password system. Continues will start you at the beginning of the stage with the default amount of life and all bosses alive. Passwords, well, they're a bit complicated. Upper and lowercase letters and freaking symbols. Come on, no one likes symbols and passwords. I will say that continuing in the final stage isn't recommended. By then, the enemies come at you constantly and health is very limited. The bosses can be a nightmare to defeat with the low starting health, and you can easily miss one if you don't immediately run left. Sure, you can get to the end of the level and backtrack, but do you think you can really keep your health at a high level to get back there? Life does carry over between stages, and you can even get some bonus life when completing levels, so if you don't end the previous level with a decent amount, you're going to have a rough time. Although I did use a password, and that's because apparently there's a glitch in Stage 7. When defeating 2 of the bosses, you'll get the key. But there's a third boss in this stage. I didn't realize that I had the key, so I just entered the room and killed the boss as normal. But then you have a problem. This takes away the key. So the level becomes impossible to finish unless you die. Sure, the stage is somewhat simple, with plenty of pills to turn you into Bert, but still, this isn't cool. Because of this, I used the password to get to the 8th and final stage, but I could not clear that, so gave up. One day I'll try again, but not today. The graphics of the game are fairly decent, even though I don't understand why Mark and Bert change sprite colors every few stages. Maybe I can understand Bert, since he gains a more powerful attack at times. Why Mark? Did he bring a change of clothes in case the current ones get dirty? Other than that, the visuals are just decent. Nothing spectacular. I'd go and say the first stage actually looks the best, with what originally starts as a colorful and vibrant turning dark and foreboding. It's such a twisted change that's not expected that you want to see more of this. But again, as I've said, this isn't seen again in the game. The music is a mixed bag. Sure, it starts off great, but then turns gloomy. But after this, many of the songs are just, The biggest problem with them is that they loop quickly. Even the best of tracks will get annoying quickly because of this. And that's Monster Party. Is it worth playing? It's really hard to say. The first level is absolutely a must for any horror fan to see that awesome change, but after that, it just turns into a basic platformer with what essentially turns into a boss rush. There are some interesting ideas with the bosses, Bat Weapon, and Bert, but they just don't feel to be capitalized on. I'd say it needs to be played once just to see what the fuss is about with the fans, but personally, I think the game is nothing but mediocre past the first stage. But that first stage is still fun as hell. Final score? Let's go with 7 out of 10 on this one. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.